dear guests, on the occasion of the 5th conference organized by the National Archives of Romania, the Bucharest branch, with the kind support of Mr. Nicolae, we are deeply honored to be here today in the presence of the distinguished Professor Paschalis Kitromilides. He will evoke today some moments in the history of this city by presenting a number of documentary records concerning Iossipos Misiotax, who was an 18th century philosopher and professor, but one of the greatest exponents of the modern Greek Enlightenment.
When I first discovered this personality in the context of my research on the Enlightenment, I thought that in his case we had a kind of epitome in which many of the broader phenomena of Southeast European history, of Balkan history, were compressed in a life cycle. And that's why I devoted my first book in Greek, actually, was devoted to Misiotax. A life history in which broader phenomena, and especially the phenomenon of the multiplicity of identities in Balkan society, but generally in historical experience, has been enclosed in a very vivid way. And I say vivid way because we have the evidence of his books, his 6 books. And that's about it. That's all we practically know about this person, who is he's such a lively and strong personality and such an attractive interlocutor when you try to talk with him. So that he becomes a very familiar presence. And then you realize that it's a familiar presence about whom we know nothing. And therefore, it is very interesting to try to recreate his biography, because we encounter in this effort all the basic problems of history writing. And so this is what I'm going to try to share with you today, how I wrote this book, why I wrote it, and what the historiographical and methodological questions of writing a biography of an unknown person involve. By looking at manuscripts of correspondence in the National Library of Greece, I found a collection of the letters, the copies of the letters written by the great scholar of the Princely Academy in Bucharest, Lambros Fotiades, in the last decade of the 18th century, in the 1790s. And this collection included a very short letter addressed to Iossipos Misiotax, to whom Fotiades writes in ancient Greek in a very condescending way about his work in the academy. And this tells us that in the 1790s, just a few years before his death, which can be put on the year 1800, we know the place of his birth, not on the basis of any record or any evidence coming from the place where he was born, but from a great monument of cultural life in the Balkans in the 18th century, which is the great map of Greece produced by Rigas Velestinlis. It's called Charta της Ελλάδος, map of Greece, but it is, as you know, a huge map printed on 12 folios, and it is a whole map of Southeastern Europe. On this map, he mentions only one modern name, and that modern name is Iossipos Misiotax. He records, for no apparent reason, the village of Chernavoda in the Danube Delta, and he says, homeland, patris, Iosipou to Misiodakos. And that's how we know that Misiodakos was born there, and I expressed the wish that one day a plaque should be put up in Chernavoda recording the birth of this person there. Also through indirect evidence, we can more or less suppose the dates of his life. A great Greek scholar and merchant in Budapest, Georgios Zaviras, who was active in the very early part of the 19th century, and who recorded the biographies of his contemporary Greek scholars, is recording, among other things, a biography of Misiodakos, and he is telling us that he more or less died at the age of 70 around the year 1800. So from that, we can more or less suppose that he was born in Chernavoda in 1730, which more or less makes sense in terms of his subsequent career. If he was born in 1730, in 1753 he went to study on Mount Athos under Vulgaris, which is a reasonable age for his time. He stayed there for 3 or 4 years. Then he went, after Vulgaris left Mount Athos, he went to Smyrna, where he didn't have a good time because he expressed his interest to go and study in Italy, and the local teacher, who was a very conservative scholar, Hierotheos Dendrinos, tried to prevent him, saying that don't allow him to go study in the West, because those who go and study in the West become atheists, and when they come back, they make others atheists as well. So he relates that story himself in his book. So we know that story and can place it more or less chronologically. So this is gradually how the puzzle gets put together, by looking at what he writes in his books, by checking evidence which comes from other sources, and by filling in whatever documentary material we have. And this is how the book came about. So with the material that is made available by his printed works, we can have, despite the poverty of the documentary record, we can have a good sense of the flow of ideas which shape his own attitudes and which were radiated in his environment through his teaching. And we can explain the fact that such an important person and a political activist and a visionary of freedom like Rigas records his name and his birthplace on his map.